All righty. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Live by Heart Today, Show 49, Black Box Behaviors, with your hosts, Dawn Spiegelberg and Wendy R. Wolf. Take it away, ladies. Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
and wearehistorically.com, Conscious Human Apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today, show number 49. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation. I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, a posture therapist and coherence coach. We're focusing on living agreements, and today's theme is black box behaviors. With me for today's Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, professional transformation facilitator. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Dawn. This is a really great subject. I love the title, Black Box Behaviors. And we're talking about the stuff that after we have the initial input that we talked about last time about through our eyes, then the body processes in our thalamus what happens next. And it's not in our conscious control. It's affected by our experiences. So I'm really excited for you to unpack this with us. Thanks, Dawn.
You're welcome. I'm excited to talk about the thalamus because it's a part of our body. And the thalamus is an organ that's considered the black box of our body. So everyone has kind of a framework for what a black box is. They know it as that box on an airplane that receives all the input. And then if something happens, it survives, right? It survives whether there's a crash or a change, and it just receives all the input from everywhere. And just like the black box in a plane, the thalamus is our black box. It receives input not just from our eyes. We highlighted eyes last time because the eyes are so important and we get a lot of information from our eyes. It also receives the input from our ears, from our skin touch, our nose, and our taster, our tongue and our mouth. So all of this information is filtered through the black box. One of the amazing responsibilities of the thalamus is our consciousness, our awake states and our sleep states. And so for those people who struggle with sleep, they may wish to look at the thalamus to find the source of the problem. Wendy, have you ever had trouble sleeping?
Yeah. I mean, people would call it trouble sleeping. It rarely has occurred as trouble. It's just that I don't like to fall asleep when I'm supposed to. And in my illness, I had a lot of weird sleep stuff happen. Yeah, but it's come down to a nice roar now, happily.
Hooray.
What about you?
That's great. I never have trouble sleeping. Actually, I take that back. If I have caffeinated coffee, then I have trouble falling asleep.
Yes.
But in general, I can sleep quickly and easily. And I attribute a lot of that to my experiences. So I tend not to be a person with hypervigilance. And I do my best to limit screen time in the evenings. You know, there's that blue light phenomenon. Yeah. And I think, in different situations, like if we're in a tent and I'm hearing lots of sounds that I'm not familiar with, it'll take me a second to realize, oh yeah, this is what it's like to be outside, and to reestablish the difference between sleeping outside and inside. And for some people, that's very difficult, right?
Yes.
It's impossible for them to fall asleep with the chirping or the leaves rustling or a stick breaking. And there are reasons for that.
Yes. Yes. Because we're not used to it mostly. Like my grandmother, where she lived, it turned into, when I was a kid, it was like this 4-lane highway, and she was right on top of it where she slept. I was like, how do you do this? I'd sleep over and she said, the first few nights she was awake, and then it was just what it was. Just totally used to it.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Like people who end up having apartments near a train.
Right.
It's very similar.
Yeah, it's just what's normal, because this area learns, right? Like that's the thing. It's subject to our experience. So if there's certain sounds or behaviors or whatever, that just becomes normalized. This is just how it is.
Right. And that's called habituation.
Or it's like, or we have certain situations which happen all the time and it's not okay.
Yeah.
And then we get like reactive to that, hypervigilant about that.
Yeah. And there are recipes. There are specific sets of information that becomes a bad outcome. And the thalamus tracks all that, right? It's all the information coming into your body. And then, of course, memories are created when you have a set of experiences and then a strong feeling associated with those memories.
So it's positive and negative, not just negative. It's positive too.
Positive too.
Oh, when this person gazes in my eyes and says these words and comes up and dances around with me and nice things happen. So that's also a pattern, a recipe.
Yes. Yes. And the recipe becomes a memory. All of those individual stimuli become a recipe when there's a strong feeling associated with it. So, for example, a wedding day there's a lot going on, and there's a little bit of stress and joy, right? Both together. Stress isn't always bad.
It's intense.
Yes. Yeah. So that intensity, the intensity of, for example, in my life, giving birth. I remember both of my children's births because of the intensity and because of all the things that were happening that led up to the moment of giving birth. I remember the people in the room. I remember when we had to drive, to the place where we chose to give birth. All of those memories are very strong.
Yes. Yeah. So, and then in the negative, this forms some of the extreme reactions in negative ways, like PTSD, as well as just the what's that called? When we're super stimulated in negative ways. Triggers.
Oh, yes. Activations. Yeah.
Activations.
So the thalamus regulates our behaviors and our feelings when there's a level of stress involved. So you have a great story about this. Do you want to talk
Yes,
about
I do.
it? I'd love to hear that story.
It was the summer before last, and I was living outside of Raleigh. And each night I would walk, sometimes alone, sometimes with Michael. I'd walk to the pool and swim at night. And in the dark. And I was walking back by myself along the road in the dark in our neighborhood. And all of a sudden, so this is what happened for me. All of a sudden, I'm leaping back. Like I'm walking and then I'm leaping back. And I'm still healing my knees and my body.
Yeah.
And so it was just this shock to me. I'm finding myself bouncing like I'm a cartoon backward in ways that I didn't even know I could do. And it was just like, whoa. And then I'm landing, and then I realized, oh, there was a snake. There was a copperhead.
Ah.
And I realized then, like as I'm landing, that there had been this hiss, and there had been this movement, and there had been this snake-like form, which I had not seen until my body had already reacted to it. And it's just so fascinating to me, that whole thing. Like all of that was unconscious, and I didn't consciously know what was going on. And it turned out it really was a snake, and it just snaked its way on. But I was really close to it.
And then you weren't.
And then I wasn't.
That's amazing. So you just described exactly what the thalamus does. It takes in all this information and it distributes it to the right places before you even had cognition, recognized it consciously. Mm-hmm. It already put you into action. And I think that's absolutely brilliant and a perfect example of what it does and what it's capable of, and how important it is for us to honor it.
Yeah, it's like it's the difference between life and death in intense situations, and that's, I'm assuming, why it's there and it works. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it sometimes works overtime in our very relatively safe environment that we live in, that we're super stimulated by things that aren't trying to get us. Mm-hmm. And we have trouble with that, but that's something
based on the experience. So if you have a history of a certain set of stimuli that add up to a bad experience, which is, bad feelings of stress, feelings that you're not safe. Mm-hmm. This part keeps track of all that. This thalamus organ is responsible for keeping all of that information stored. And I think it's difficult to change it based on the recipe. I call it a recipe because we understand how you make a recipe. If you're going to make cake, you have flour and sugar and egg and milk and baking soda and mm-hmm. sometimes vanilla. Mm-hmm. And if you take one or two of those out, you don't get cake, right? When I take two of those things out, I then get cobbler, mm-hmm. which we enjoy just as much, but you don't call it a cake.
Right.
So the black box keeps track of every ingredient. And if in your history, each one of these ingredients means something not safe, which for you it did, right? Yeah. The sound, the shape, the movement meant mm-hmm. danger. Mm-hmm. And you jumped back.
Yes.
And it was brilliant because it worked perfectly.
Yes, it worked amazingly. Like, I'm staying out of the way. I should do all my athletic movement without thinking, because it was really well done.
And that's your blueprint, right? That's your design, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And in people who have an overactive black box, or whose history has not had great outcomes, the recipe of a sound, the recipe of the environment, or I should say the ingredient, and the next ingredient of a movement, that can equal something dangerous, something not acceptable. And so they're going to respond. The body will naturally respond because of those ingredients.
Yes. And there's this word that's used a lot these days called trigger. And I like to recontextualize that to a little less tense word. But Like how do you go about, is there research about going about desensitizing certain things?
Yeah, I haven't read much of the research. Some of the research is, if you're afraid of spiders, go sit in a room with spiders, and I don't approve of that at all. I don't think that's a good way to do it.
Mhm.
I would take away one of the ingredients, or I would swap out the ingredients, right? So if the ingredients are flour, sugar, and egg, I wouldn't start with flour. I would start with sugar. So if you're afraid of spiders, I would say, have somebody put a glass over a spider, and then just get accustomed to having a spider in a glass.
Mm.
Even if it's on the other side of the room, just know that the spider's over there and it's in a glass and it's not going to get you. And just leave it there for a while, right? You don't have to go near it. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to look at it. You don't even have to go in that room, but just knowing, right, that there's a spider in the glass in the other room,
Mhm.
right, and become comfortable being that far away from it. Learn how to regulate your stress from
Mhm.
right, changing the ingredients.
Right. So it doesn't mean like having a tarantula walk on you. Like that's not the first step.
Yeah, I think that's
Like in
probably
the Brady Bunch when they went to Hawaii. I mean, like
uh
I remember this, right? Like
uh
because there was a tarantula walking on the person,
yeah.
Um, yeah, didn't happen to me, but it happened in my imagination. And that's the thing. It's not just what physically happens, it's our imagination.
Yeah.
What
And our
happens
imagination based on our experience.
based
Hmm.
on our experience. Also, I think we talked about this before, but the movies and the books and the like that also, and
Yeah.
the scenarios we practice in our heads,
Yeah.
whatever they might be,
Yeah.
really affects this.
Yeah. What about you? How do you help people with activations, strong
Yes.
activations with a negative outcome?
Um, the most important thing is to be grounded into here and now,
Mm,
and with the body, and with
mm,
now, here now with. Um, that's where I start with everything, because if we're not here now with the body, we're not. We're
yeah.
somewhere else. Um, and I also, the longer I go as a healer, the more I delve into safety and security with the body, and how do we create that experience
Mm,
for the body and have the body rest in that. And you've said that you grew up in a more safe
hmm.
environment, and so the foundation is more comfortable, and it probably still needs a little this and that
Oh
sometimes,
yeah, definitely.
but you've got a foundation there. And other people, like, really don't even know what safety is,
Hmm.
what that experience is.
Hmm.
So that's where I start, and so that's the most important thing. Like, can we be in with now, and in our soul experience, in our body experience, allow the turning down of things like the fear and terror and
Hmm.
all those really intense things? Can we let those start to settle and allow the other things that are so healthy to grow, like safety and maybe even comfort and that kind of thing? So that's a big part of it.
Hmm.
And I don't know at what point of these brain things it affects, but it very much affects. And it certainly affected me, to be able to just turn down the extreme hypervigilance and fear. And really that is, and pain, to be able to allow that to just be down to a dull roar.
Yes.
And then on top of that, start to deal with the scenarios, whatever they might be. But first, a good foundation.
A part of the foundation you're describing has to do specifically with the physiology of the body. So A body that is under stress is not actively healing. A body that is living in fear, and it can be a perceived fear or it can be an actual fear. Like, for example, coronavirus was the fear that we couldn't see, but we were afraid of it because we didn't know when it was coming, how it would come, right? It was on doorknobs, and it was
how to protect ourselves.
Yes. And that level of fear had a specific physiological response in us, and that's tension, right?
Yes.
Tension, which is readying ourselves to respond. And we can understand it a little more clearly if there's a visible fear. Like if there is a cougar in your backyard and you happen to be out gardening, you tense your body in preparation to fight it or to run away from it. I don't suggest you run away from it, right? Or to hide from it. And that specific physiological response changes how our eyes see, our mouth becomes dry, our heart begins to beat faster to get blood pumping to our muscles. And what's really incredible about it is that our digestion turns off and our immune response also turns off. The things that are not essential for survival turn off. And what's amazing is that during coronavirus stress, that's when we want our immune system boosted the most.
Yes.
So the first thing I help people do is learn how to relax in their body and release and shift out of the stress response.
Yes. Into where we're secure and safe.
Exactly.
And then the other experience happens. So are we going to go into that now?
We're going to take a short break now.
A short break. Okay.
Hooray.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hello, I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, a heart coherence coach. How do we create happiness in our own life when it seems like there's nothing to be happy about? When the world is crumbling around us, what do we do? What do you do? How can you be happy? How can you connect with what's most important? If you need a happiness adjustment, if you want to learn how to be grateful at any time in your life, contact me today so you can experience heart coherence.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I instruct an online video course that teaches anyone how to play jazz piano like a pro with my proven step-by-step system that makes it simple to learn. Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com and download my free quick start guide.
Welcome back to the Live by Heart show. We are talking about black box behaviors, and another important behavior of the thalamus has to do with coordination and planning and initiation of movement. So one thing that Wendy, you mentioned that was a beautiful example of this is that when the recipe for snake was perceived, when that information was taken in from your eyes, from your ears, your thalamus was the thing that coordinated your movements to jump back.
Beautifully, like better than I could do it.
Right? Like, I just want to say this is miraculous stuff we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Things that happen based in survival, based in our highest and best good, and for the benefit of the physical body, the safety and continuation of what makes us matter, what makes us particulate. So there's another thing I want to mention, and we'll end with this. and that is the amazing ability of the thalamus to track our conscious information, but it also keeps some information out of our consciousness. It holds it in our subconscious.
Like things that are too disturbing.
Not even too disturbing. Things that might create an outcome that don't go according to our programming. I'll give you an example. So, growing up, I had an older brother and a younger brother. And so I was surrounded by boys doing boy stuff. And my dad and I got along really, really well. And my dad was an engineer. So I wanted to be exposed to and doing the stuff that boys did.
Yeah.
So my environment was very boy centric. My dad was an engineer and I wanted to know how things worked. And so standing in the kitchen and washing dishes,
not it.
Right? It didn't thrill me. And what my mother said was, you're a girl. You need to do these things as a girl. Right? So that programming is held by my subconscious mind.
Right.
And so it doesn't necessarily have to do with my safety in this body, but it does have to do with a societal norm and something that my mother told me was essential for a woman. So, every time I'm outside and my husband says, hey, would you get on the other side of this? Let's lift it up and put it in the back of the pickup truck. I hear my mother's voice saying, this isn't what a woman does. And I always comment on it. I say, this is what I do.
Yay.
Right? This is what I do. So
yay.
It tracks subconscious programming, and that subconscious programming can direct us in our life. So for example, I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am a fencer, and these things, are very martial, and women tend not to do them because of that subconscious programming that tried to sneak in there.
Right. And so you're conscious about this. You're conscious about the unconscious programming a little more.
Right.
And you say, I notice you and I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to keep talking to you about doing it anyway and practicing doing it anyway. And it becomes more normal.
Right. Right. But that's not true of everything. Like for some people, there's the story, money doesn't grow on trees. And so their whole life, they feel like they don't have enough.
Right.
And someone else grew up in an environment where there was plenty.
Right.
And that's different.
So it's all that subconscious programming that we were talking about last time. It's back. It's back. All the information we get about how it should be and how we should be and how we are and how they should be is all right here. And it's not conscious. And so, for me, I noticed it in my relationship. Like, I grew up a feminist. I grew up like, women are equal to men, it's just how it is. And that's what I read and that's what I thought. But like when I actually was in relationship with men, like it was different than that. And I took a lot of work to be playing with that, still taking work, because there's just all these weird patterns underneath that we just pick up.
Yeah. And one interesting pattern is the concept that men don't cry.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The whole macho, let's not have feelings and experiences.
Yeah.
And then when you're perceiving yourself as equal, wait, we're equal. So yeah, you can cry, except they've been taught and told that it's not appropriate to cry. Right. There's that juxtaposition of how do I be? How can I be? What's safe to be?
Yes.
And what's not safe
how can I be safe and alive, and how can I be loved and accepted?
Yes.
it's all deep stuff under there.
The software.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right. So we have all the subconscious programming, and also, is this the place where if we have memories we don't remember at all? This is there as well. Like if bad stuff happened and we don't remember.
I don't believe so. I believe
It'd be
that's
somewhere. Okay,
stored in the hippocampus.
Excellent. Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I feel like this is so helpful to understand these steps and how everything works on the physiological level, because I'm just so used to dealing with it in the energy level, and to be able to be like, all right, I don't really know why what I do works. It just works. It's one of those black boxes where you put this in, you get that out, the way I do it, but I don't. So it really helps to say hello to this black box. And say, oh, this is some of what we're repatterning on the inside.
Yes.
And allowing to shift so that our default boom is different.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. When we live by heart, which is what this show is about, we understand how we work, both spiritually and physiologically, so that we can journey on the path to making the changes that we'd like for ourselves. So there's healing to be done around our eyes and what we see. There's healing to be done on our past and the kinds of experiences that we had that might activate us in ways that we don't want to be activated. And healing can happen in the thalamus as well. So everyone can choose to be whole, healthy, and complete through the process of healing and living by heart. And you happen to be masterful spiritually, and I happen to be masterful physically. And what's amazing is that we both overlap. So I'm learning spiritual tools and you learn physical tools, and it's really a match made in heaven.
It really is. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hopefully everybody's enjoying it as much as I am.
Yeah, I hope so. It's so fascinating to me. So I hope people are enjoying it. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's watching today. We'd love to hear from you. If this conversation about the thalamus and the black box spoke to you, please tell us what's on your heart. Tell us about an example you had. Tell us what you notice in your own life. Please leave us a comment. And for more information about how you can live by heart, please go to our website, livebyhearttoday.com. Also, like and follow this page and turn on notifications. We're here every week on Thursdays at 4:44 Pacific. From our heart to yours, we're creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Shop online at wearehistorically.com. Conscious Human Apparel.
Hello, my name is Wendy R. Wolf, and I hope you come to my intensive. I'm really interested in working together with people who are big feelers, healers, also lovers, and leaders. These are the people that tend to be really paying attention to what's going on the inside and how we can help people from there, help other people. And I'm going to offer an intensive with interactive exercises so that we can become empowered as big feelers and healers and lovers and leaders. And I hope you join me. Please go to my website, wendyrwolf.com, and on the top I'll have a button to sign up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilridge. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.